We really can't call ourselves celebrating prophets. That's really not the biblical way. When prophets are killed or assassinated, our job is to pick up the baton and continue the work. Every round must continue to go higher. We cannot be at ease in Zion by celebrating the fights and victories won in the past without engaging the battles today. Sadly, many will go to king events today and claim to honor the prophet because dead prophets are easy to be honored. And many of them on both sides of the aisle will go, while even today they are standing diametrically opposed to the things he fought for: addressing systemic poverty, addressing racism, ensuring voter protection, just immigration policies, just treatment of Native Americans, health care for all, and dealing with the war economy and militarism. And so today, the Poor People's Campaign, a national call for moral revival, want to remind you of that. The campaign, called by Mary Wright Edelman and welfare rights women and embraced by Dr. King and many others, said that America can't truly be who she claims to be as long as there are 2 and 3 Americas, but one America that has everything it needs, and another America that suffers day in and day out. We cannot be satisfied when over the last 2 years we have seen some moral absurdities. We've seen far too many Republicans gleefully glad to get power so they can support an autocratic leadership and greed and lust of for-profit mechanisms, and so that they can engage in retrogression to roll back rights that have already been won. And too many Democrats are too gleeful over compromised successes that, yes, have done some things that we supported, but have not finished the job. We can't be satisfied when 52 senators, 50 Republicans, 2 Democrats, said no to 55 million Americans and refused to vote and pass a living wage, even though we've not raised the living wage since 2009. We can't be satisfied when 52 senators said no to health care for all people, even though they get free health care because they got elected, paid for by the people. And even though 700 people died a day from poverty, 250,000 a year before COVID, and during COVID, 330,000 people died. Not because they caught COVID, but because they didn't have health care to address the disease. We cannot be satisfied. As long as 52 senators, Democrats and Republicans, blocked Restoring the Voting Rights Act, which continues to allow states to pass voter suppression without any form of preclearance, redistricting plans that are racist in their intent and suppressive in their application. Where even now there's a bill coming out of North Carolina arguing for legislative sovereignty that says once a state legislature passes bills on voting, no one can overturn it, particularly the state courts. That's not going forward, that's going backward. That's not the dream, that's the nightmare. We cannot be satisfied when 52 senators, Democrat and Republican, voted against the passage of the John Lewis for the People Act. And at least one of those senators, a Democrat, told John Lewis before he passed it he supported the bill. But in the wake of his death, chose to follow the way of the U.S. Chamber of Commerce and others rather than protect the right to vote. But democracy is just not under threat because of what happened on January 6th. January 6th happens in many ways because we too often continue to compromise with lies, which only empowers extremism. Just a few days ago, some economists were suggesting that the way to deal with the inflation was to have more unemployment. In other words, make the people who already suffer more rather than making the wealthy pay their fair share. As long as that reality and this kind of regressivism exists, then our movement must grow. It must intensify. It must be emboldened. We must be committed to legislation, litigation, mobilization, and if necessary, nonviolent action. But what we cannot and will not do is be silent or unseen anymore.
This Martin Luther King Day, we must continue a campaign for social, political, and economic rights, not simply commemorate a man. In the state of New York, where I live, more than half of all kids are poor and low income. More than 1 in 4 workers, 2.3 million people, make less than $15 an hour. Health insurance gaps are associated with nearly 10,000 COVID deaths. And New York State public schools, the same schools my kids go to, are some of the most segregated in the country. But it doesn't have to be this way. What we learned from Dr. King and the welfare rights leaders and Appalachian families, migrant farm workers, and other poor and impacted people who organized the 1968 Poor People's Campaign is that the very social force capable of challenging abandonment amidst abundance, poverty amidst plenty, is a fusion movement of poor and low-income people, clergy, activists, and advocates who can move forward together and not one step back. Today and every day, let's honor King as we end racism, poverty, ecological devastation, the denial of healthcare, militarism, and this false narrative of Christian nationalism. Let us fight poverty, not the poor.
Hi, my name is Alexandria Armstrong. I am a single mother of 2, a 4-year-old son and an 11-year-old daughter. Currently, I have been sick. I have a chronic illness, lupus and fibromyalgia. Haven't had stable housing for about 2 years now, regardless of working and going to college. These past 2 years has been hard because my 11-year-old daughter says she really doesn't feel like she has a home. She feels like she hasn't had a home, and my family is in desperate need of stability. I really feel like with the proper wages, I feel like with the proper health care, I feel like my family could actually come up out of this. So I am asking for Congress to do something to change the laws, to make sure that we have equal wages, equal health care, equal housing rights, so that my family and I can thrive.
For me to get a good paying job has been more than difficult, and with the economy as steep as it is right now, I barely can afford to buy my kids dinner, let alone live comfortably. Minimum wage rate should go to something that benefits everybody and that people can live comfortably, and that we should all do it because it benefits our children.
Hi, my name is Tiffany, and I have what is called a primary immunodeficiency. This means that my immune system can't work on its own. I have to receive a treatment of antibodies that are made from donor plasma every 3 weeks into a port in my chest. This is the only treatment, and there are no alternatives. This treatment is extremely expensive. If I did not have Medicaid, I would not be able to afford the only treatment that keeps me alive and protects me from an infection essentially killing me. No Kentuckian, no person should ever have to be afraid of affording the treatment that allows them to live. Healthcare is a human right.
It's notable that it was 60 years ago this year at the March on Washington that Martin Luther King, together with A. Philip Randolph and Bayard Rustin, began their critical work on the people's budget for the United States, because they knew, and Martin Luther King Jr. knew and conveyed and told us repeatedly, that racial justice can only come together with economic justice and with peace. Well, in 2023, how much more relevant could these concepts be? We are again at an unnecessary war because it is possible for the United States, Russia, Ukraine, and other countries to sit down and negotiate an end to this ghastly war. We need peace, peace through negotiation. And we need economic justice, because the inequality in our society is so much greater than in 1963. It's unimaginable what happened, of course. The civil rights movement was followed by a terrible backlash, and an economic backlash as well, when corporations use their power to gain control of the Congress, to corrupt our political system, to turn our institutions for the rich and against the poor. The promise of economic justice, which has been achieved substantially in other societies, still remains to be achieved in the United States. The Poor People's Campaign is vital. Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. is our inspiration. Yes, the moral arc does bend towards justice, and it's our job to help it to do so.
Hi, my name is Matthew. I live in North Carolina. I work 60 hours a week and more, and I still don't make enough money to live comfortably. I'm chasing the American dream, but I'm living the American nightmare. Raise minimum wage. Impacted people matter too.
Hello, my name is Pam. I'm from West Virginia. We watched 49 Republicans and 2 Democrats make sure that the people was pulled out of any bills that was passed. Now we watch you all give you high fives and pat yourselves on the backs like you did something really great. Well, Senator Manchin, Senator Capito, Representative Miller, and Representative Mooney, if you're so proud of your work, why do you keep slipping in here like a thief in the night to do your photo ops and your ribbon cutting? Are you afraid to speak to your constituents? You're afraid their opinions? Are you afraid to look at the homelessness that's still on the street? Don't you want to hear about our poverty wages? No child care, no paid sick leave. We've lost voting rights, we've lost equal rights. You know, nothing's changed for us.
We are here today asking Congress to act, asking our governor here in the state of California to act. We have plenty in this country. And in California, we have plenty homes to end homelessness. We have plenty food to end hunger. We have enough to survive. We have enough to make sure everybody thrives. But what we don't have is political will. We have been living under poverty for so long now, and we can no longer continue to do this. What the pandemic has taught us is that if there is a political will to really save the lives of those most in need, then it can be done. During the pandemic, we had eviction moratoriums that prevented evictions. We had programs that help people pay their rent. We have the child tax credit that help us make sure that we could provide for our children. What we need is to expand those rights. But we also need these corporations to be paying their workers living wages and benefits. We need unions. We need to make sure that the working class has what it needs to not just continue to survive, but to thrive. So we're asking Congress to act now.